Hey y'all, we're back again with another Frank's or Frazier's where we solve math problems and you tell us which method you prefer.
I'm Frank's.
And I'm Frazier.
And something's feeling a little different today.
I know, right? I know what it is. We're serving lips and looks.
We got these shirts from Modern Revival, Black-owned apparel from North Carolina. Go check them out.
They're a family-owned business as well.
And now let's get back to the math. We are factoring quadratic expressions. Here we go. Factor 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. Well, to factor means to create a double distribute problem. So I know I want to end with two expressions being multiplied. I also know that whatever numbers I put here have to multiply to 3. And the only numbers that multiply to 3 are 1 and 3. And then I know whatever terms I put here need to multiply to 2x squared. And I know that 2x times x is 2x squared. So I'm going to put my 2x here and my x here. The next thing I want to think about is what should my signs be so that when I double distribute, I get back to 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. Well, the method I'm using is guess and check. So I'm going to guess that this should be a -1 and this should be a +3. And then I'm going to check by double distributing. 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times +3 is 6x. -1 times x is -1x. And -1 times +3 is -3. When I combine like terms, I get 5x. That is not the same as what I started with. That's okay, because I'm going to guess and check again. I still want to use 2x times x because that's 2x squared. But one thing that I notice is that I might need to change my signs. I'm going to make this +1 and this -3. And now let's check. 2x times x, 2x squared. 2x times -3, -6x. +1 times x, +1x. And +1 times -3, -3. Oh, this adds to -5x. Okay, I'm going to try one more thing. I'm still going to use 2x times x. This time I'm going to make both of my signs negative. So I'm going to have a -1 and a -3. Time to check. 2x squared, -6x, -1x, and +3. Yes, that works because -6x minus 1x is -7x. I have my +3 and I have my 2x squared. So that means my factors are 2x minus 1 times x minus 3. Okay, let's take a look at how Frazier solves it.
Hey y'all, Frazier here. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I like to factor when my a quadratic expression, when my a term is not equal to 1 or greater than 1. Because sometimes when you play with numbers, it'll work, but other times it may not work. So I do the AC method, or I factor by grouping. And the AC method states that when you have a quadratic expression, right, the standard form is ax squared minus bx plus c, where your coefficients all line up, should be plus, all line up to your variables, right? So the AC method is 1, you take a and you multiply it by c. So in this case, a times c is really 2 times 3, which is 6. Once you do 2 times 3, then you find factors, right, of that value. So the factors of 6 would be 1 times 6 and then 2 times 3, and then you pair them. And then you play with these numbers in your head, right? So basically you're asking yourself, what numbers then when you multiply by when you multiply together gives you 6, but when you add gives you a -7. And you do have to play with your negatives in your head, right? Because negative plus a negative gives you more negative and so forth. So make sure you know your values or your properties of adding integers. So I'm going to look at these numbers. I know that both of these, when you multiply, you get 6, but which set that when you add in some combination can give you a -7? Well, either way, this is going to give you 5 or 1, depending on how you look at it. This is the only factor, but the only way for this to be a -7 is that if both factors were negative, right? -1 plus a -6 gives you a -7. And then -1 times -6 gives you a +6. So you know that these are the factors that work. So once you figure out the factors, you just take this particular problem and you rewrite it. So you say 2x squared, and instead of rewriting -7x, you write it in terms of its factors. So 2x squared minus x, or 1x, minus 6x plus 3, because you bring that 3 back, right? So the only expression that gets replaced is the expression, and you're rewriting -7 as a sum of -1 and -6. Now, once that happened, you are good to go, because now you start grouping. You're basically factoring the first two values and factoring, or rather expressions or terms, and then you're factoring the last two terms. So if I'm looking at 2x squared minus x, and I want to factor out what's the greatest common factor that I see, x. So once I pull out an x, what's left is 2x minus 1. Then I'm going to factor this out. What's the greatest common factor of 6x and 3? And notice this 6 is negative, so make sure you pull out that negative. In this case, -3 is the greatest common factor. What's left over? A positive 2x, right? And then what's left over is a -1. And how do you know? If you remultiply these values, right, or redistribute, you're going to end up with the same original expression. And then once that's done, if you notice, there are two expressions that look exactly the same. So essentially, you're going to factor again, right? You're going to pull out the greatest common factor of this entire expression. And that greatest common factor turns out to be 2x minus 1. So once I pull out the greatest common factor is 2x minus 1, what's left over is x minus 3. And there you have it. That's how you factor expressions that has a greater than 1. And you don't really understand how to play with numbers. All right, tell me which way you like the best. Here's something Franks and Fraser can agree on. The Dope Math Notebook, rulers, and pencils are the best tools to work through any math problem, either in the classroom or at home. The crisp design and endless resources in the Dope Math Notebook will keep you passionate and intrigued about math. Purchase your own Dope Math bundle today, or get a sneak peek inside by downloading the reference sheet at dopemath.com.